Well, Jim, as the drive-thru rolls on, we have a big review, the one everyone's been waiting for, the AEW pay-per-view. Some people thought it was one of the greatest pay-per-views of all time.
What?
Other people thought the exact opposite. I'm not sure who was in the middle. It seems like everyone took one position or the other, but AEW Revolution.
Oh, I know what position I took. On my hands and knees, got out a time of my life I'll never get back. That's what position I took on the thing.
This was AEW Revolution in Los Angeles.
They've broken me. They've broken me to the point where I don't know that I can muster up enough outrageous indignation to fully express the various vehement thoughts that were flashing through my mind as I sat and was inflicted upon with this thing. What Uncle Dave said on paper, this is the strongest pay-per-view lineup ever in the history of pay-per-view. Well, they should have stuck with paper, because on video, it was fucking brutal. And I'm going to even expose a little bit of our own business here. We are doing this part of the drive-through episode that you folks may be listening to now, if you are indeed consuming the podcast instead of a clip on YouTube, one way or the other. The point is, I've just sat and watched this show. It's a Monday morning. The pay-per-view took place on a Sunday night and a Monday morning. It crossed midnight, the wee bitching hour. And then I got up and I watched the thing from 8 o'clock in the morning till fucking noon. And then we're recording this because I have a family commitment that we could not do the whole shebang of a program today. I'm helping the in-laws with some things this afternoon, so we're going to do the rest of the program tomorrow, because I said we don't have time, and there's no way after I watch 4 hours of this that I could be in a cheerful mood, Brian Last, in order to start the program and not just have people be suicidal listening to me by the time we get halfway through it.
You said 4 hours. I'm guessing you didn't watch the pre-show?
Well, that was a point I was going to make here shortly, but since you jumped right into it with both feet, I will follow along. I'm talking about the pay-per-view, ladies and gentlemen. That was past 4 hours. The pre-show was another hour and a half. I've been on fucking sold-out shows with six-figure houses that didn't have as many people on the card as they had on the pre-show. Would you like to hear what was on the pre-show, Brian? You didn't watch this, did you?
I saw bits and pieces. I saw the end of the Jericho segment, and I saw a little bit of the Big Boom AJ thing, but that's all I saw. I don't know if there was much else other than that.
Well, I jotted it down off the internet just in the interest of completionism, to let the people know what kind of show that the people in Los Angeles saw before the show that they came to see got started. That's a proper way to phrase it, isn't it?
That's a way to phrase it.
Hologram and Commander defeated Blake, Christian, and Lee Johnson. But you doesn't got to call him Johnson. Why, you could call him Lee, or you could call him LJ. Where's Bill Saluga when you need him?
He's dead.
Well, we need him. So then they had an 8-man tag team match. Playa, Danny Garcia and the unmitigated era. What is their goddamn name now? The Indomitable Spirit,
the Undisputed Kingdom.
Undisputed Kingdom. I was still going for era. Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole, and Roderick Strong with Danny Garcia defeated Shane Taylor, Lee Moriarty, Carly Bravo. She sounds like the traffic girl on local news. And now to the helicopter for a look at the traffic with Carly Bravo and Sean Dean. And then help me understand, since you saw a bit of this, I read the result as Chris Jericho went to a no contest with gravity. Did he float away?
Obviously, if you look at his waistline, he's been having a battle with gravity for several years now. No, I didn't see any of the match. I didn't even know what exactly the match was. I just saw the post-match where Bandito, who was wearing a different color mask, so I didn't recognize him at first, was being held back by Big Bill, who looks great. He's in great shape. While Jericho ripped the mask off Gravity, because that's the worst thing you could ever do to a luchador, is rip the mask off. And you saw his face for a second, then he went down, and you get that weird thing where no matter what they do to him, he sells his face because he's covering his face.
like Ernie Ladd and Wild Bull Curry selling their ear when they get stomped on the toe. But yeah.
Punch in the gut. Oh my God, my face is exposed. And then finally Bandito was set free and he jumped on his friend to cover him so that no one would see him. And then the family was at ringside and it was doing
Whose
a lot.
family?
I guess it was Gravity's family. I didn't have the commentary on. I was just watching.
Gravity has a family?
Well, all of a sudden there was a woman and kids
what would that be? Would that be like tidal waves or what would be related to Gravity? What's in the Gravity family?
See, now you're making me question what happened. AEW Revolution pre-show. And here are the results.
I'm just, if people were defying gravity, I'd like to know about it.
And that one didn't have anything. Let's see. Here are the results.
Well, I thought Jericho was the newsmaker, the record breaker,
Jericho,
the masturbator.
Ripped off Gravity's mask. And, it doesn't say anything here about the family. At one point, there was a woman and kids being shuffled to ringside, and they made a point of showing it. I figured it was Gravity's family. Maybe it was
I think that was a dispute over some kind of paternity suit payments that one of the talent was sort of like a Billy Travis thing in Memphis.
The angle here, I'm reading a WrestleZone report. The angle here with Gravity and Bandito's family was old school wrestling, and it was done well. All right.
Okay, and then apparently to main event. Got my notes here. Apparently to main event 0 hour, and it was aptly named, except it was apparently an hour and a half. The male models that were run out of the WWE, Massage or Menage and Mansway, or Massage and Menage, or whatever their names is, and apparently now poor Johnny Nitro, John Morrison, John, whatever his last name is at this point is somehow affiliated with these cretins. And they lost to Pockets, Mark Briscoe, and the Costco guy.
I watched that match.
And that, what is he? Is the Costco guy over on the West Coast like he is on the East Coast, or did they get it, or what happened?
They react just fine to him. He throws good punches. The biggest reaction was for Big Justice when he got in the ring at the end. People like
he's the larger pudgy kid rather than the smaller pudgy kid, right? Whose name is the Twizzler.
The Rizzler, and he was at ringside. He came out dressed like Orange Cassidy, so he was kind of a mini Orange Cassidy for the match.
Oh, he already fucking outweighs Orange Cassidy, and he's fucking 5.
Johnny TV, there were some weird, not weird, but you've seen people make out on wrestling shows, but this one, they made a point of him and Taya Valkyrie just tongues all over each other's faces. It was kind of gross, I have to say.
Well, no, it's okay. That's been blessed by a preacher. They're married,
right? But no one wants to see it. Is my point. I don't think anyone wants to see them.
Well, no, it's okay in the eyes of the Lord as long as they're officially betrothed to each other. They can go ahead and fucking
they can.
Goddamn all kinds of Kama Sutra shit out there.
Although no one wants to see it. My point is, no one wanted to see. It was disgusting.
Well, nobody wanted to see any of the rest of this shit, but they had to. So why can't we watch Johnny fuck Taya?
Because, again, you didn't watch this, you wouldn't have wanted to see. It was gross. It was gross. And that was...
Hey, I'll tell you what. If Taya's involved, I always want to see it.
Really?
Anyway, we finally got to the point where I joined the festivities. AEW Revolution on pay-per-view and on... What are they on now? They're on Amazon. If they're on Amazon Prime, does that mean that every time one of those screwy little trucks, or now people just in their normal civilian motor cars pull up your house, they're going to hand you a box with, when you open it up, there's a goddamn tape of the fucking show.
No, it just means you go to the website and you purchase the pay-per-view and stream it.
Well, I can stream shit off my deck that I would rather watch than anyway. They were in Los Angeles, the city of the angels. It seemed like they had a decent crowd for them these days. You might want to, they didn't say how many was there, at least not that I heard. They didn't have any big graphic like the other guys do when they have big crowds. So it seemed like it might be something for them to brag over, but did you hear any bragging about it?
According to WrestleTix, and this was yesterday as of 4 p.m. Eastern time, I believe, they had 11,322 tickets distributed, only 423 tickets available. And I have to say, it looked great. The house looked really, really good. It was the best. It was the best looking crowd from AEW we've seen in a very long time.
Over a year. Or since, when was Greensboro? When they did the big house?
That was like a year ago, right? Wasn't that like last March?
That was last March. Beware the tides of March. Okay, 11,300, even if those are distributed, they're not all paid and they have set up for a little under, they could have said, we have 12,000 people sold out. Graphic drone shots. The other guys they finally do it. If they said anything, I didn't hear it. And they started the show off, and thank God for this. MJF is the smartest man in wrestling because he always, I think he goes to, well, I was about to say, I think he goes to production meeting. They don't have him. I think he hides behind equipment cases and listens to what stupid shit is going to be done in the course of a show. It either goes on first, second, or maybe sometimes third to get the fuck out of there and not to get any on him and to still have a crowd that will watch normal, logical, common sense wrestling and react to it instead of having seen 47 different attempted mayhems and vehicular homicides. And in this one, he went on first. If I would have MJF, I would have asked to be on the pre-show on this one. Him and Hangnail Page. But can you deny, Brian Last, that it's awfully odd that whenever MJF was going to have a classic match with somebody like Punk or Danielson, and they weren't going to literally try to behead and disembowel people on the undercard, he went on last because that was the money match. But now that they've taken their company into the Outlaw Mud Show gutter and negated much of MJF's appeal with their shoddy booking, he gets on first or second and gets the fuck out of there after having what makes a match that makes more sense than anything else you're going to see on the show. Am I lying?
I don't know if you're lying, but I think he's always gone on early in the show with, a few exceptions like the Punk thing. But, think of him and Darby. That opened the show. That match I loved a few years ago.
Yeah, but what else was on that fucking show? Why he wanted to get in and get it over with?
Yeah, I mean, they always had nonsense. But even if there was no garbage on the show, I still think it's probably a smart move. And in terms of AEW, I think MJF, again, when he's not in the title match picture or in a big feud, he's kind of like the perfect guy to start out with because he does good stuff and he does enough and nothing goes too far. And it ends up being a great match. Now, I don't know about Adam Page's haircut. I feel like MJF got saddled with Cody coming out with that tattoo. He got saddled with he won the title and then Punk beat up the Bucks. And now he got saddled. He has to wrestle Adam Page. He comes out with it wasn't a perm, but it was a very pretty little haircut.
I couldn't even come up with a cogent simile on what that haircut was about. But here's the thing. So it's Page and Hangnail. And again, MJF is the best in the company probably at putting smart matches together where shit gets a reaction and it makes sense in the context of what you're looking at. And MJF is also the smartest guy at working like a heel so you understand who the heel is and giving the babyface by proxy or process of elimination or whatever a little more oomph himself because the people are wanting him to foil the heel spots or to give the heel a taste of his own medicine, whatever. So you got that going for you. Hangnail, as we know, is a blood drinker. Or was he the drinky or the drinker? Who drank who there? Him and Swerve, they're blood brothers.
He drank Swerve's blood, and I thought about that when he spit in MJF's face. I'm like, oh, anything with this guy and fucking bodily fluids is kind of disgusting.
Well, but the point being, they probably come from opposite ends of the spectrum, and I was worried that MJF would be trying to do too much of this moron's caca to placate him. But then when I saw the finish and I realized why it was mostly seemed like an MJF match for most of it. I don't know about that power bomb on the knee, because in this case, he power bombed Page's back on his knee, but Page's head went down on the mat and his legs jackknifed up over the top of it. I'm not worried about Page. I'm just hoping that MJF doesn't do it to anybody else. And that would be a hard sell for me anyway, because you're not going across something that you can absorb with the brunt of your upper back. You're like getting power bombed on a balance beam, and there's too much margin for error where you could go sideways, or in this case, over the top or whatever. And Page at one point fired up after MJF hit the ropes and ran and hit Page in the face with his dick. So that was an interesting spot. I love MJF's hammerlock DDT. That thing ought to be a fucking finish. It looks better than most people's shit, anything else that anybody does. So, of course, it's a 2 count. And they went back and forth, and this again this was an okay MJF match and a really good, maybe the best ever Adam Page match, because they mostly made sense. They went back and forth on false finishes where Page is trying to get the buckshot. He hit it the buckshot or buck snort or whatever. He hit it one time. MJF got his foot on the ropes. He kept going for it, but MJF would stagger or roll away. And then finally, MJF foiled it into an arm bar and held it for a while. And then they were on the floor for a while. And then, for no apparent reason, they're fighting on the floor, but Page turns around and gets up on the rail like he's going to moonsault the guy off the railing around the ring while the guy's standing on the floor. It just seemed odd that he would, I'm going to do a backflip now, except that MJF caught him because that was the next spot. And he gave him a tombstone pile driver on the folding chair that was sitting at ringside. And that was different and it looked great. And they bent the chair. And the doctor's checking Page, and then Page rolls back in. And this was going to start what would be an epidemic of the night of shit that looked okay in some cases and definitely looked dangerous in all cases and would kill any normal human being in all cases. And then they just jump back up and do more shit.
Yeah, Page was on the floor until like 8.5 dead. And then all of a sudden at 8.5, he woke up, and then at 9, he jumped in.
Yes. And then there's MJF is crying. And why you and not me? I was asking the same thing. Well, why am I having to watch this? No, that's the thing where, yes, I understand he's working the deal where he's mad and offended that the fans started cheering for him. I would be too, cheering for this putz instead of me. But he just tombstone pile drove the fucking guy on a goddamn folding chair that's sitting on a concrete floor, and the guy beats the count, and now they continue the match. And Page picks him up and gives him a dead eye, and then a face buster, and then hits him with the buckshot, 1, 2, 3. And I was like, what the fuck? He just tombstoned him on a chair on the floor. And the next 3 moves that happened, Page just got up and fucking beat him. And but I'll tell you, it was 20 minutes, but it didn't seem nearly as long as the rest of these things would, because some of them were longer also. But I couldn't understand the finish. Why? I mean, obviously they said, okay, MJF, everybody else has tried to get this sorry sack of shit over. It's your turn. Do a job for him. However, he was, instructed, required, or contractually obligated to put this fucking prick over. But how the fuck did MJF think it was a good idea to do a devastating move to him just before he got up and kicked his ass right in the middle, 1, 2, 3? Or did they make him do a devastating move to the guy so he could get up and kick his ass 1, 2, 3? Help me.
I don't know how I'm supposed to help you. I don't have any answers. I think the tombstone on the chair looked incredible. Do you think it's wasted if it's either?
Yes.
Okay.
Either I think it was completely wasted. Because what? Either, my God, MJF is the weakest sumbitch on the planet, Page is indestructible, or more probably, all this shit's phony and it doesn't hurt anybody. And that's the fucking goddamn attitude that most people get when they see horse shit like this. And the people who are in the audience who are of AEW, who are the dedicated 500,000 people or whatever that are going to fucking watch the TV show, or 100,000 that are going to buy the pay-per-view here, they know that some of it hurts, but they're like awestruck that these fucking phony motherfuckers will goddamn work together to put on a show where they try to break each other's necks for their benefit. Most people don't think that way. But
and hopefully we're done with MJF and Page. It seemed like the match ended and now both guys can move on and we'll see what they do. I don't want to see Adam Page and Swerve ever again. I don't really need to see Adam Page and the Bucks camp again. I don't know what they're going to do with Adam Page.
What are they going to do with MJF?
I don't know. I don't know what there is to do with MJF right now.
What is there to do, Brian?
I don't know. Unless we transition to a sponsor spot or whatever it is that's happening right now. I don't know what's going on. Well, Jim, as we take this short break in the action, I think it's been hard to ignore. MJF suddenly has a lot more facial hair, a mustache to go with his beard and his chin. And of course, Adam Page always has something going on, and now he has a girly haircut. But let's talk really about the facial hair. You need the right razor. You need the right support to make sure that you make all the right decisions when you take that razor to your face. Help me out, Jim. We're talking about our friend at Harry's.
You're making me want to take a razor to my throat.
No.
Well, you can take one of the Harry's razors to your throat, your neck. You can rub it around on your jugular, and it's not going to do serious damage because, ladies and gentlemen, these things are designed for custom shaving and ease and comfort and smoothness and closeness and all of the slickness that you would imagine from folks like Harry's. And of course, that's harrys.com, HARRYS.com. Don't think it's Harry's, HAIRYS, because that would just be silly because of the pun that would be going on with the situation. But folks, if you're Harry, then Harry's has something for you right now. A $13 trial set for just $3. You wonder why. You say, why, JC? Why? Is it so important that we get a trial set so you can understand the quality of the products that you can potentially receive on an ongoing basis in the future from Harry's? Because they've got, first of all, the razor, the incredibly ergonomically designed weighted handle that's so easy to hold in your hand, with the treaded grips on the handle that make it easy not to drop it. And potentially swallow it and choke yourself, or potentially on the way down, it might slice some element of your dick off or something. That's only if you're naked in the bathroom, but most people are. It's one of the rooms in the house where most people are naked. But never, Brian, are you usually naked in the bathroom, at least from the waist down?
Well, I mean, the shower's in the bathroom.
Well,
I mean, maybe
well,
in there
you know,
take a shower.
It polls show that you're naked a lot of time in the bathroom, but nevertheless, while you're naked, you got this incredible ergonomically designed razor handle. You've got the 5-blade cartridge with the razors that are sharper than a serpent's tooth, German engineered blades made in their own factory. And you get foaming shave gel to smear all over your face so that you can glide that incredible, scientifically, ergonomically perfect razor across your face and eliminate all that facial hair. And you get a travel cover, $3. And that way, you can see that you like these products, and then the customizable delivery options with refills as low as $2 are available on your own schedule and your own time. You don't have to go to the store and have the guy pry this anti-burglary device off with a crowbar or whatever, or set alarm bells off when you're trying to leave the grocery store. It comes to you right in the mail, and it's a no-risk trial. You can cancel at any time, convenient subscription options, highest customer satisfaction in the shaving industry. If they can make you look good, and you meaning the royal you out there, you know who I'm talking to. I'm talking to you. If they can make you look good, you know they're good. So normally the trial set $13, but right, it's $3. So what the fuck? It's 75 cents a week. You can shave on this thing unless you're a werewolf for quite some time. Harrys.com/JCE. Brian, have you recently trimmed around your head and knuckle area?
I will tell you, I have made some adjustments recently, and I have to make a few more, and I'm very lucky that I have Harry's here in the house ready to go, because I'm going to need it, and I'm going to use it. I need a friend like Harry from Harry's.
Well, and Harry ain't going to let you down, I'll tell you. Ever since he's been coming over here to shave me,
What?
every Tuesday afternoon at 3:30. He comes, and that's why I mentioned being naked, because he's always wanting us to be naked when we go to the bathroom for the shave.
Well, Jim, I could tell you someone who could use Harry. One more time. What's that promo code?
JCE.
That's right. And I could tell you someone who can use Harry's. That, of course, is Tony Khan. And let's go back to his wet dream, AEW Revolution 2025.
Well, now that we've got all that settled, Brian, the revolution continued. And unfortunately, in this case, the revolution was televised. And we got to see, for the women's title, Mercedes Moon versus Momo Wannabe. And again, I think this was a situation where they were looking at the lineup and said, well, we might as well get this over with early. I mean, seriously, two girls doing too much that they can't do for too long, and nobody really gives a shit about either one of them in the overall scheme of things. And at right around 18 minutes into this exhibition, Momo came off the turnbuckle and landed bad and hurt her leg. The announcers were saying ankle. My suspicion might be the knee. I don't know if you've heard any update, but Mercedes grabbed her, gave her that shitty finish, and then got some kind of STF-like choke maneuver, and Momo tapped. And then I heard on Twitter they carried her out. So what? And again, all this crazy shit that these people do, and she jumped off, I think, the second turnbuckle and landed on her feet in the ring to do a rolling thing and just landed wrong. But did I miss any subtleties in this match as to how it would be the greatest women's match ever? Or
No.
Was I saving a good amount of time here?
I don't think this was much of a match. I don't know about the injury or not, but they either didn't mesh well together or it just wasn't going to happen. I've never really watched Momo. If I've seen her before, I don't remember. Wasn't very impressed with her, and the fans didn't really seem too impressed with any of this. I mean, it's an AEW crowd where they're quiet a lot, and you kind of have to try to figure out, are they just paying attention, or do they not like this? And they didn't even really react at the finish or at the end, so I don't think they liked this very much, and it wasn't a good match.
I think in a lot of, even in the main events, they sit there and stare unless somebody is chopping, which makes a good loud noise, or either party gives somebody else a big fucking bump or they do a stunt. And then they don't care whether the babyface or the heel is winning or in charge or whatever. It's just, oh, they try to kill each other, which is where they've got themselves with shows like this, that it can't be new. It can't be different. They've done everything they can do to the human body. Well, we'll get there. But anyway, Swerve Strickland with Prince Nana versus Ricochet was next up, Brian. And are they ribbing Swerve now that I've seen people get marching bands and string choirs, or not string choirs, but string orchestras and choirs and all kind of rock and roll bands and all kinds of musical accompaniment on their entrance on big shows. But have you ever seen one unknown drummer play a guy's fucking music to the ring?
Here's a bigger question. If done right, that works well. Nothing like a great drummer. Imagine if they had Gene Krupa there. Nothing like a great drummer.
Oh, Buddy Rich would like a word.
Oh, yeah. Well, he'd like a fist, too. He's a tough guy, Buddy Rich. Did the drums work for the song? It didn't work. It didn't go with the song. So then, like, he's just banging away back there, and you can hear him, and then the song's going, and it just didn't seem like it worked or meshed well together.
When you think of Swerve's music, I swerve when I drive, and it's kind of like it's the rapish, it's the urban, it's the hip hop, it's that. Do you think of drums?
Exactly. Keith Moon couldn't play on that track. John Bonham would have said, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like, it's not the right place for a drummer.
Only Ringo Starr, I think, could have made that work.
Did they identify the drummer? Was it even a famous drummer? I'm not even sure who it was.
I don't know what he just did the drums, and then here came Swerve, and the guy was drumming the drums while Swerve was swerving.
Missed opportunity to use one of the drums in a match?
No, well, if it's a missed opportunity, it's the only one they missed. And probably that poor guy said, "Fuck you, you're not breaking my fucking drums. I need this in the park on Sunday afternoons. Make my rent." So anyway, they rang the bell. Swerve and Ricochet. What have I said about guys' worst instincts? Where when you get one of the gymnasts in with a guy who can work, he'll be calmed down, and Osprey is a classic example. When you get him with MJF and he can't do all the double foolishness and his shit has to make sense, he's a heck of an athlete and you can apply it to wrestling. When you get two guys that their whole thing is they want to outdo each other with the hokey, kung fu movie scenes, they nailed all their cartwheels and their round-offs and their backflips and their leg slaps perfectly. That's all the shit that they have fun doing. But what looks like shit is their punches, their kicks, any basic wrestling move like a chin lock, and any timing and any sense of the flow of the match rather than getting in the video game moves against each other. That's what suffers with these guys. And also the overbookingness of Tony thing. I don't know whether it's them or whether it's Tony or what, but at this point, does Nana not look like the biggest prick ever? Does Swerve not look like he ought to just tell his fucking useless bastard to hit the bricks? They've made Nana almost ineffectual physically and not even trying most of the time, made him look like a pussy, but then he bows up and tells Swerve, you better get my robe back. I've done a lot for you. What? You got your ass kicked for him because you would fight back. And then, even in this match, Nana tries to pull him off the fucking guy on the floor so he can tell him to get back in the ring, and Swerve loses his temper and shoves Nana down. Well, okay, but then Nana walks off on him and leaves the guy and stays in the back for the rest of the match until he comes out and tries to fucking steal his robe back. Like the robe's more important than whether Swerve's getting his fucking head caved in. And then after Swerve wins and gets the fucking robe back, he gets on his knees and presents it to Nana like Nana's the king instead of the prince. This story is so, what the fuck? If friends like that, I don't need enemas.
I actually thought, and I maybe still think it would have been the better option.
Nana turned on him.
I thought Nana was going to turn and go with Ricochet.
Yeah.
And all three of them were wearing white. You know, and I've been kind of paying attention to the colors, especially after the Jade Cargill segment. The colors people come out with and the colors people are wearing. Usually it's white for a babyface, black clothes for a heel. Everyone was wearing white here, so it was kind of ambiguous. And when Nana left, and then when he finally came back, I was like, oh, this is the time for Nana to turn. And it didn't happen. And that would have been the best thing for Nana, I think.
Yeah. It would have given him something to do, and people would have given a shit. At the same time, it might have made fucking Ricochet interesting, which ain't going to ever happen. But anyway, that was the match, is that there was a long, awkward struggle on where they were balancing on the ropes, but then they jumped off without doing anything. So I think they lost it. And they tried they did a big move on the Spanish announce desk, and that table didn't budge. I thought it looked like they hit a frying pan. At one point, Ricochet did a 450 off the top and landed back first right on top of Swerve with every bit of his fucking weight. And then not only got a 2 count, but also, what the fuck? What do I tell you about these fucking lunatics spinning around off the top rope and just landing wherever? And then they did the bit with the robe. And when Nana stole the robe, Ricochet dove out on him and knocked him down, and then took the robe back and put it on. And then Swerve dove out on Ricochet, and Ricochet tried to catch him over his shoulders in a fireman's carry for probably a Death Valley driver on the desk or whatever. But Swerve was going too fast, and Ricochet's weaker than cat's piss, and he lost him and dropped him on the floor head first, and then fell on the side of Swerve's face. And that could have broken his neck twice in a space of 2 seconds. And then again, Ricochet does a big move and gets a 2 count, and Nana grabs the robe, and they have a tug of war with the robe with Nana and Ricochet. And Swerve rolled Ricochet up, but Ricochet kicked him off, and Swerve stopped short in front of squishing Nana in the turnbuckles. And then Ricochet came up from behind with the roll up and pancaked Nana in the corner and rolled Swerve up, and Swerve kicked out and then gave him a kick to the head and then gave him the other kick to the head. Second kick to the head is whatever they call his kick to the head, and covered him and got a 2 count. And I'm, Jesus Christ. And then he picked Ricochet up and hit him with some big fucking whoop-de-doo. Boom, 1, 2, 3. Jesus, why was that necessary? They had the momentum. They had the tug of war with the manager. They had the manager pancaked. They had the roll-up and the kick out. And then Swerve kicked him in the head. Boom, cover, 1, 2, 3. Don't kick him in the head again and then pick him up and hit him with something else. Now you've lost your fucking momentum. And also, you've just beat the guy flat when you didn't need to beat him flat, because they would have been happy to see him beaten with the little out of the fucking roll up in the pancake and the blah, blah, blah. They can't stop themselves from doing too much shit. And Ricochet's not smart enough to the wrestling business to realize that instead of being beaten on a fluke where the Swerve kicked out after the pancake of the manager and then kicks him in the head from behind, and he gets kicked in the head again, and then he gets picked up and just beat. So he's a fucking idiot. Have I made this point?
Crystal clear.
20 minutes, bell to bell, again. And then Swerve got the robe, and Nana came in the ring, and Swerve knelt down and gave it to Nana, and then they hugged. Because, I don't know. Anything you'd like to add? Or
No, not really. Like I said, I thought it was the time for a Nana turn. It would have made sense. It would have made Nana, it would have refreshed Nana. Would have been good for Ricochet. I don't think Swerve needs a manager at this point. But they went in a different direction, and by the end of the night, they'll go in a new direction with Swerve.
Well, the direction he came by the end of the night was down, plummeting faster than a stone. But we'll get there, because next up was the Intercontinental title match between Brody King and Okada. You know how even sometimes when you're not really a fan of somebody, but you see him in a situation where you feel bad for him, you're like, I feel sorry for this poor fucking guy. That's the way I felt for Brody King. Because I'm sorry. I said Brody King was the number 3 guy in the House of Black. Malachi ran the thing, but he never got over it. It was all that more of that spooky movie bullshit, and it was phony. And people were like, yeah. And the booking, whether it was Malachi's or Tony's or whoever's, a stop and start and here and there, whatever the fuck. Buddy, his work is great. His body's great. His name is rotten, and they bury him. And Brody King is a guy who would be on top in a small territory, or basically an indie guy for modern, consumption, that just wouldn't be a featured guy in a major promotion. But Malachi leaves, and they repackage Buddy and Brody as the Hounds of Hell as a tag team, and then bring them in and beat them as a team, and then they beat them both as singles. They haven't won a match since they got repackaged. But Brody King looks like Bruiser Brody next to this soft, lazy, bland, nothing happening, no personality slug. Okada is either the worst wrestler in the world, the laziest wrestler in the world, or potentially both. Now, he can't be the worst. That's Moxley. But he's the laziest because Moxley works hard to suck. And this guy is sleepwalking through this. Can you deny what I'm saying, Brian? That every match that Okada does, he sleepwalks. He's the only guy I've ever seen that does an elbow fall off the top instead of an elbow drop. He's klutzy. He's awkward. He's slow. He takes a bump like he's landing on goddamn hot asphalt. And every once in a while, he'll stand up and throw a drop kick. Can you deny what I'm saying is true?
I always liked him in Japan years ago, and I can't deny what you're saying. Sleepwalking. And if he's not lazy, and I'm not going to say he is, but he appears lazy in the way he does his things in the ring and on the floor and wherever else he does stuff. I have not enjoyed Okada's run in AEW at all, and this was not a match I liked.
Lackadaisical, maybe even better than lazy.
Yeah, you know what? That's the term.
Just like, who cares? Who gives a shit? I'm going to get paid either way.
Okada-daisical.
Okada-daisical. I like the cut of your jib. So Okada brings a chair in, and it's the corpse referee, Rick Knox. So, of course, he takes the chair away, dramatically turns his back, and pitches it out and keeps his back turned until Okada runs over, grabs the championship belt, hits Brody King in the head with it, throws it out, and then the referee makes it obvious that he wasn't looking on purpose by spinning and counting immediately. 2 count. The very next move that happens in the match, Brody King, who just got crowned over the head with the title belt, is up and fine and clotheslines Okada and gives him a headbutt and splashes him in the corner and runs at him, and Okada jumps up and drop kicks him and then picks him up, and Brody King throws a clothesline, which Okada ducks and hits his shitty rain fucking maker. It's as dry as the Sahara Desert. That little shitty clothesline, it depends on how the guy takes a bump as to whether it looks fake or not. As to whether he takes a decent looking bump, because otherwise it's the shits. And
Drought maker.
There you go. And he hit boy, you're just, I can't even snap my fingers today. I'm sober klimped.
Thank you, sir.
You're right there today. The drought maker, 1, 2, 3. So the belt shot didn't work. Brody King was fine seconds later, but a shitty clothesline beat him. And another way of looking at it is the heel fuck didn't work, so the heel just beat the babyface flat right in the middle of the ring, 1, 2, 3. Brody King has no excuse. Yeah, he just beat me. At least it was only 12 minutes.
And you brought up they're the Hounds of Hell, and we haven't seen them win, and they were repackaged. They got a video or two. And then Buddy lost to Okada. Buddy also got hurt. So we don't know when we're going to see Buddy again. If you're going to do anything with Brody King, you probably don't beat him right away. Again, it's a title match. I may not want to do a title switch, but why put him in the match?
Why have the match then?
Why put him in the match then? But we'll see what happens. I'm not as negative on Brody King as you are. Not to say this was a good match or anything. I didn't like this match, but there's something there. I think there is something there.
He looks better now that he got a tan, because with all the tattoos and no tan, he looked like a black and white comic strip. Anyway, then all the titles were on the line, Brian. This was a big championship night. We had the tag team title on the line with the Outriggers, Magnum Turbo and Floyd R. Turbo.
No, it was
Magnum Force.
It was
Maggie May.
Turbo Floyd. And was it Truth Magnum?
Truth Magnum. Truth Martini has already filed a copyright infringement lawsuit. The Outriggers versus the Hurt Syndicate. And to be honest, on a weeknight, this was like my second or third favorite match, just because there was no goddamn thumbtacks or barbed wire. But I mean, in all honesty, what Okada and Brody King was a 12-minute TV match, and what this was an 8-minute TV match. And there's nothing wrong with that, because of everybody all night, the Hurt Syndicate came out looking less silly and less weak and less ineffectual. MJF didn't do too badly. He gave the guy the tombstone on the chair, and the guy got up and kicked his ass for it. But obviously there was no doubt that the title was in jeopardy here. Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley would be the best tag team right now in the WWE. Because think about it, who are the... okay, the Motor City Machine Guns are the best working tag team in the WWE, but they have neither one been blessed to be the size of Bobby Lashley or Shelton Benjamin. And think about it, the Lucha faces, the Lucha heels, the purely dreary, the Ciampa and Gargano, stand Lashley and Benjamin next to any of these people, it would be ridiculous. These guys could be, if there was any decent tag team competition, featured in main events, because they look legit, they are legit, and they act like stars, and they don't do the stupid things that everybody else on his program does that makes them look weak. I think Shelton Benjamin had to stooge for some of the foolishness of the Outriggers, who apparently their gimmick is that they're a parody of 80s tag teams, right? To the point where they've got a VHS style entrance, but on this show, it just looks like they had video trouble. You can't really tell.
There wasn't a single tag team in the 80s that acted like them or looked like them.
No. And that was the thing, is that Shelton had to stooge for some of it during their comeback, but basically they shined them at the start without the Hurts getting their asses really kicked. So they gave him a little bit because they have to make it some kind of contest. MVP gave him a pep talk and they took over. They were physically dominant. Then the comeback with the stupid faces and the stupid acting. And then the Hurts took back over and Shelton kneed both of them and Lashley speared both of them. 1, 2, 3 in 8 minutes. So it was to get the Hurt Syndicate over, but I just don't know why even a match like that has to have silliness involved. But nevertheless, there we are. But who, right now in tag team wrestling, who would be a good, legitimate match, entertaining match, physical match for Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley?
FTR.
I forgot about them.
The problem is it'll be a really good match. You just hope FTR don't get on the mics. And something has to be done different. It's just they've gotten to a bland point where as soon as they come out with that music, it's doesn't have the energy it had a few years ago. So I think it would be a good match or series of matches, but for it to be a feud, you'd have to find a way to really do something there.
Well, and then
they've been
who would be the
baby faces? Yeah, that's the problem.
Well, that's the problem, is that Shelton and Bobby would be the baby faces because people would be cheering for them to beat the shit out of FTR because the way FTR has been handled or handled themselves. You know, it's terrible when you mishandle yourself. Yourself seems to be the person that would most know how to handle you.
I didn't think this match was very good, but if you were going to do it, it should have been a squash or something. The Outrunners have gotten the ironic pops.
Yeah.
And they've been on Collision, I guess, featured more than anywhere else, but they took that. Watching Shelton having to sell for them, it wasn't even about look at Shelton's shape or, who he is and how tough he is. It just didn't look good. It just didn't look right. And at one point, Shelton went for the knee to the guy in the turnbuckle, and the guy moved, and Shelton kneed the turnbuckle, and he did the thigh slap on his knee hitting the turnbuckle. And I was like, what is that?
I missed that one.
Yeah.
I missed that one.
So they got to do something different with the Hurt Business, and this should have been a squash because it wouldn't have hurt the Outrunners. That's the other thing. And it hurts them if you see them in a match and they don't look good and it doesn't look like they're ready for national TV. It doesn't hurt them if the baddest motherfuckers in the company kill them. That won't hurt them the next time they come out on Collision. But one and done, I guess.
Well, thankfully for that. All righty. Now we start getting to the part that made me offended on behalf of all professionals in the wrestling industry. The rest of the show from here was a quick dive into fucking indie-rific heaven, Wonderland. They live to do this kind of shit. And the women's title, Falls Count Anywhere, no disqualification, lazy booking, Maria May and Toni Storm. And they have just, this angle, this phony bunch of bullshit between these two girls has just captivated all of the AEW fans. They have been over the moon, as they would say, about Maria and Toni. So, of course, what do? They decide to let them have the lowest class. I mean, the Insane Clown Posse should have sponsored this. This was garbage on a scale of garbage matches that you don't normally see. It was at 1 minute in, Maria May pulled a taser out of a bouquet of flowers. But Luther grabbed it, fortunately. Yes, he's still around. Go ahead.
That was Harley Race's old move on dates.
Well, yes, that's right. Because especially if the father answered the door. He's got the flowers, he's got the taser, he's ready for it. Luther grabbed the taser. She kicked Luther in the nuts and drop kicked him and he took a bump and went over a table, but it was on the stage. So when she was trying to run for the drop kick, she slipped and got it off anyway and landed on her fucking head. And then Toni Storm power bombed Maria May off the stage through a table in the first minute and a half and got a 2 count. And I wasn't going to watch this because I said, all right, this is going to be ridiculous or embarrassing or both. And then I realized I need to see which it is and how much of each. And it went off the charts. It set records. They did the long fight on the floor. Maria pile drove Toni Storm on the steel stairs, and then Toni got color, and she's a bloody mess. And they had 2 chairs and a logging chain in the ring. But then they stopped the match completely so that both of them could go out and get 2 buckets of broken glass that were underneath the ring and put them in the ring. And then sit there and watch each other in opposite corners of the ring, wrapping tape around their fists outside in so that the sticky part is out, so they can dip their fists in the broken glass and start having a fake boxing match where they duck each other's punches until, oh boy, Toni Storm hits Maria with one of them and she takes a bump and rolls out. And of course, the announcers say, well, Toni Storm hit her right in the mouth. So when the camera stays off of her for a year or two while she gets her color on the floor, then Maria rolls back in and she got hit in the mouth and it busted the top of her head open. And then Toni Storm dumped the buckets of glass all over the ring and raked a broken fucking bottleneck over Maria's head. But fortunately, Maria saved herself from further injury by breaking a bottle over Toni Storm's pussy. Have those words ever been spoken before, Brian?
Maybe.
Breaking a bottle over Toni Storm's pussy.
Maybe a cafe flesh. I'm not sure, but I've never heard those terms on a wrestling show. No.
So they're taking bumps in the glass. They're both covered in blood now. And it wasn't as exciting as I'm making it sound, but it was as distasteful and low rent and fake and phony looking. There was a pile driver on the chair. Toni Storm got the shoe that was sitting on a silver platter at ringside that Maria had beaten her with the high heel shoe. So she got the shoe and chased Maria back up to the stage where she whipped her with the title belt. But Maria gave Toni a Death Valley driver on the stage and got a 2 count. And then there was a lot of milking and nothing happening. And then Toni Storm took off on Maria with the shoe, hitting her in the head, and then gave her a pile driver through a table on the stage. 1, 2, 3. And Jim Ross said, thank God it's over. And amen to that from Cornette.
Yeah, why'd they bring Jim Ross out for this match?
Because they wanted to embarrass him and have him have to endure that without saying this is the phoniest, most embarrassing bullshit that I've ever seen. A bunch of girls doing this bullshit. Nothing I've ever seen has ever made wrestling look faker or more low class than this. And everybody involved should be ashamed of themselves. Because that's what he was thinking, I'm sure. But thank God it's over, sort of encapsulated that. It's embarrassing in a way. I can't feel bad for any of these people because they're willingly involved in it. I feel bad for some of the other people on the show that have to be on the same show as this kind of shit. But this is why that a lot of people don't watch wrestling anymore. It's fake. And wrestling used to be, they used to do bad taste and good taste. Now it's just fake and in bad taste. And it's silly and it's stupid. And anybody that, I mean, I can't believe there's as many people as this in Los Angeles, 11,000 of them that like this kind of thing. And there's 10 million people in Los Angeles. But goddamn. Even if you want to see women fighting in barbed wire and whatever the fuck and bleeding all over themselves, it's fucking fake and it's an insult to the wrestling business. And I repeat, if they can go through all this shit and they're not fucking in intensive care, then why do the guys have anything to worry about? And what angle can you possibly do to the human body to make anybody care about anything ever again? Tell me what you think, Brian.
This was a match that it seemed like it divided a lot of the people that watched the show, and I kind of had that myself. There were elements that I enjoyed for the wrong reasons, which may be a trend for me with some of the things on this show, because it was ridiculous. Like, I imagined I would sit here with friends if I asked anyone to come over for an AEW pay-per-view.
If you had any friends.
And laugh about what we were seeing. I wouldn't sit there really into a match. I'd be laughing about, how ridiculous it was. Maybe I'm in the minority. I don't know. I don't like seeing the women bleed. And this was maybe the most amount of blood I've ever seen in a women's match. And Toni Storm is as white as they get, and her whole face was covered in blood.
Oh, she's translucent.
So, again, the spectacle of it, and I think a lot of this is the whole ironic wrestling fan, the people who like Orange Cassidy, the people that were getting behind the Outrunners, they, maybe more than anyone else, have gotten into the Toni Storm shtick. And Mariah May. Mariah May does a good job with everything they give her. But this was a spectacle that I didn't really like, but I got a kick out of it at parts. But I thought it was too much blood. For me, I don't want to see women's matches, that hit the Muda scale. That doesn't do it for me.
And more offensive to me is your first point, in that in days gone by, depending on how the people watched the matches, whether it was having to go live or then television came into being and then pay-per-view, if people went live together or watched TV or pay-per-view or what the big show together, they watched the matches to get excited and to say, oh, shit, and to see their guy fucking win. Now it's a bunch of jack-offs sitting around watching it to laugh at it. And these idiots that are involved in the business now are willingly trying to cripple themselves to do something that they know their audience is getting together to laugh at. I mean, sure, people laughed at me when they thought someone had killed me because they wanted to see me dead. They went crazy over the fucking matches because we created an emotion in them where they desperately wanted to see their hero win and defeat us at all cost. And that was the emotional roller coaster they went on until finally they got what they came for. But nobody ever came just to fucking laugh at the silliness and the fakiness of it. And if they had, I think I would have been too embarrassed to be doing it. And we were legitimately doing everything we could not to really fucking paralyze each other. But these morons are doing almost everything they can to end up in intensive care for people to fucking laugh at the silliness of it all. I'm offended as a professional. Anyway, would you like to move on?
It's only up from here. Maybe.
Oh, no, there's still. How low can you go? We got the Intercontinental title on the line with our boy Take a Shit and his manager Don Fallis going up against Kenny. It's Kenny. Kenny's back. And I wrote at the bell, I really don't want to see any more of this show after the last match. Maybe these two young, well, one young and one middle-aged whippersnappers will get me into this, and they started by trading forearms. And then they did a long exchange on the floor. It's the same shit. It's like if you write bullet points, which I do, it's the same shit. They traded fake forearms. They have a long exchange on the floor. If all they do is imitate shit, why can't they imitate a match from the 80s or 90s instead of some of this fake bullshit we get these days? And then Take got heat on Kenny, but there's no incredible turning point of momentum where the heel cheats to gain an advantage and then gets aggressively on the fucking opponent, taking advantage of his opportunity while it's available to him. It's just his turn to be in charge. It's not like either one of these guys are working babyface or heel. They do the same kind of moves and they do the same kind of things, but at least Take has a manager. So at one point, he interfered when Kenny was on the floor and punched him a few times and then killed the heat by turning around and hurting his hand on the punch and selling the hand for the camera and mugging. Yes, that is a manager spot. You don't do it during your guy's heat that he's trying to get. And it's the same, again, description that I give the other match earlier, or gave the other match earlier, fake strikes and rotten basics in between moves that nobody could ever kick out of. And they just take turns with it. And it was 7 minutes in. Take a Shit pulled out a table and took a while to set it up, but they avoided it for a while. They came back to it later. Meanwhile, it was just sitting there at ringside in the way and nobody ever bothered to take it down. I mean, they're doing rolling fireman's carries on the floor and Kenny took a bump on the railing. But now, at this point, we were 9 matches and almost 4 hours in, counting the pre-show, and the crowd is, and they grab a long hold. And then they kick it up after a while. Kenny goes for a dive, but Don grabs his foot. At least, again, the manager interfering. Even though he's doing commentary and he gets up from the announce desk to do the interfering, so you kind of see it coming. And Take clotheslines Kenny over the top and gives him a German on the floor. And they milk a spot with the table, but Kenny comes out of the thing and Kenny turns the table over and the fans start booing him. The babyface, they're booing him because they think he's going to take their furniture spot away. That's where these idiots, the position they have put themselves in, where it doesn't matter whether you're one of the biggest babyfaces in the company or one of the biggest heels. If you do a spot with furniture, they're going to cheer you. And if they think you're going to take it away from them, they're going to boo you. Because they don't care about you. Yes, I'm talking about you, not the cult of Cornette, not the listeners out there. I'm talking about the AEW roster, many of whom are listeners. You dumb shits. You have all caused this because you think that you are characters in a video game or you are doing some kind of live action underground movie in one take. I got news for you. Tarantino ain't going to pick you up. But you've created a situation for yourselves where you've made your jobs ridiculously harder than they already were because you can't fucking control yourselves. You do too much and you do too much shit that looks phony and you do too much shit that doesn't make sense. And that's why nobody cares about you and they just want to see the next stunt. And if you botch the stunt, it looks bad, they'll say you fucked up. But if you botch the stunt and it looks dangerous because it breaks your fucking leg, they'll go, holy shit. And your fucking broken leg won't feel any better. You blithering simpletons. So then, with the table upside down, Brian, and the legs sticking up. Now, bear in mind, Harley Race took so many table bumps, he finally took the bad one and it perforated his intestine and led to the end of his career, and he had to have surgery. But with the legs sticking up, Take a Shit goes to give Kenny a gourd buster onto the legs. Well, he tried for the legs and kind of missed, so he just dropped him on the table flat. So then he turned the table up sideways and dropped him ribs first on the edge of the table. But in between stunts, the pace was glacial, as they were trading forearms like they were almost dead and then going into the running spots where they're hitting the ropes. And then more moves. And then Take a Shit went up to the top rope and they're fighting on the top rope. And Take a Shit stood on a second rope, bent over, holding onto the top turnbuckle, staying stock still for 10 seconds until Kenny could jump up on the top and powerbomb him off of it. Then I wrote, this will not end, just like this review. And then Take a Shit did a tombstone on him, but held on and stood up and gave him a leaping tombstone and got a 2 count. And then he hit him with a knee lift and got a 2 count. Then he hit him with another knee lift and he got a 1 count. And I got to say, for the people in the building, they loved this phony horse shit. And they went back and forth again until Kenny hit a shitty pile driver that he didn't fucking have his goddamn weight or have control of where he was going. I don't know what the fuck. He just grabbed him by the back end of the tights and hoped for the best. I don't know what was going on there. 2 count. And then more. And then Kenny went for a roll-up. But Don was holding Take's hand, so Kenny kicked Don's hand off and went for the one-winged fairy. But Take slipped out of that, and they jockeyed for position, back and forth until Kenny rolled Take up with a crucifix and got a 2 count, and then rolled through with the same exact thing without even getting to his feet and got a 3 count. A roll up. Twice in a row. After every homicidal move known to man that had negligible effect on these cretins. 30 fucking minutes. And he wins this bogus belt with a fucking roll up that he had to do twice. Your thoughts.
I'm sorry to tell you, I enjoyed the match. But again, with AEW, I get to a point where I understand it's not logical wrestling. It's every single match is its own unique thing where they could kick out of anything and do everything, and then the next match will do the same. I got to a point where I was delirious with this show, and I started enjoying a lot of things for the wrong reasons, but I like this match. Here's a question for you. We were told Kenny Omega had diverticulitis surgery. Where does that happen? Where would the scar be? I didn't see a scar. That's what I was looking for.
Well, that's a good question. I wonder.
It's the intestines, right? They would take out part of your intestines?
Well, but now there's 2 things. Number 1, is this one of the things they can do with a scope these days rather than a long incision? And number 2, is something like that. Do they go up through your asshole? I mean, they might have had a more unobstructed path that way with Kenny.
I don't know. If anyone knows, let us know. Because I was thinking that, they were selling his gut. He was holding his gut the whole time. We took that spot on the table. But if he had surgery, where would the scar be? Where's the scar?
But you know what? They're missing an opportunity. He should wear some kind of midsection brace on a regular basis and maybe have a big red target bullseye printed on it so that the heels would know what to attack.
Well, it seemed like they may have known. Don Callis is a manager. The idea that he goes from commentary to interfering in a comical way, even though you're not supposed to see him as a comical heel manager. What are your thoughts on that?
Again, I did commentary as people can readily see on YouTube in the TBS studio when the Midnight Express was wrestling job guys. And I would, because it was 10 or 15 feet, I would wander back and forth between ringside and talking to the announcers and keep a running commentary. In some cases, trying to make some of those job matches a little bit more palatable on Saturday mornings and getting the issue across. But if it was a serious competitive match, I didn't do that. I was at ringside and I was there when I was needed. And if you're going to have your guys in a main event match where there's a chance they may win or a chance they may lose, it seems like you'd be at ringside devoting your full attention to that. And if you're going to interfere, I can understand him doing it once. He did it twice. You don't get up from, hold on, it's my spot's coming up to interfere. And then get back down and just sit down and put a headset on again. It's comical. Everything is played for laughs or with a wink at everybody or a nod or tongue in cheek, as they say, or yuck, yuck. And it's just all these guys, they dress up like their characters in their fantasy video games where they are someone, and they go out there and they defy every law of logic and common sense, and everything's played for laughs, which is why their crowd gets together to fucking laugh at them. But the damage they're doing to themselves and the wrestling business in general is legitimate. That's real. And if you see the WWE these days, and you'd never seen wrestling before, you're a younger person or you just hadn't ever cared or paid attention, I can see where you would start to get caught up in what the WWE is doing and or the guys, their personalities, what they're saying, the whole thing. There's movie stars involved. I can see where, you would get involved in that as a fan. And with this stuff, I can see where you would watch it and say, well, that fucking wrestling, it's fake, it's silly, it's phony, it's in bad taste. And look at these fucking ragtag, scraggly looking fucking wrestlers. Half of them look like they ought to be in goddamn elementary school. And it would turn you off from giving anything else a try. So I'm sorry. That's what I thought.
Jim, you know what that means? It's time for the double main event, or was it a double main event? Well, 2 more big matches on this big show.
Yeah, there were two more big main events. Okay, I'm going to try to give some unbiased and honest criticism. And if people don't want to hear it, some people may not want to hear it. That's their problem. That's their fault. I'm just offering it without trying to charge for it or anything. Will Osprey and old Kyle Fletcher, there are good things about both these guys. And let's go with Kyle first. He is physically looking amazing. I mean, he has probably been doing calisthenics in his sleep since he got this spot. He's got the size. He's still so young. He needs some fucking hair. And I don't know if the Pippi Longstocking kind of thing he had it before they shaved it off was the answer, but he needs some kind of hair because he's still a young guy and, he's still finding his personality. But he's a tremendous athlete and he can do a lot of these moves. I don't know whether he's trainable or coachable. He seems like a person who's working his ass off, so it would seem like he is. I think he's probably being trained and coached by the wrong people. Is the promos, the voice, the accent. If he grows up and gets a little older and gets a little bass in his voice and some more conviction and just oomph to him, have I said enough good things about Kyle? Is that an honest appraisal in your opinion?
I think you're giving an honest appraisal here. You're not just ripping him for no reason or anything. Yeah.
Will Osprey. Again, he's the top babyface pretty much in a company that's, consistently appreciated by the people, and they haven't turned on him yet. He's very athletic. Same thing. It doesn't look as good as Kyle physically, but he's very athletic and he looks fine physically. And he may be getting older in wrestler years, but he still looks like a young guy. And he's got the curly hair. And he's got fire and enthusiasm. And he's a snazzy babyface when he works. The same thing I said about Ricochet and Swerve, when Osprey works with somebody who's a worker, who's not going to compete with him in the fucking uneven parallel bars, then Osprey becomes the snazzy young babyface using these wild, unorthodox moves and escapes and flips backwards to counter that you don't normally see as a part of the match to outdo the fucking guy who may be bigger or meaner or more powerful. Then it becomes a story of the thing instead of just flipping about because you can do it. You're in a video game. He's one of those guys. If he's got somebody like that, then he can use it to his advantage. And he's got the unfortunate speaking voice and the accent. But if he's trainable and coachable, not in the moves, but in the psychology of wrestling and in promos, a professional organization, AKA the WWE, would slow him down a little bit in some of the promos where people can fucking stand him, not have him drone on endlessly about shit that only the most diehard internet mark even knows what he's talking about, and make it part of his bubbly European personality. There's all things that could be tweaked, but both of them need somebody to fucking book them, because left to their own devices, which had to be what this was, it was every indie wrestler's fucking wet dream, combined with a part of this match that, if it was presented in any wrestling territory anywhere in wrestling, at one point in time, it would have led to a riot. Not a good riot like the fans are mad at the heel, but a bad riot like we want our fucking money back and this is bullshit, and it killed the town. But now, because in part, this is the audience we talked about that watches to laugh at bullshit, in part because there's so much of that people just roll their eyes at it. People just overlook this type of thing, but the psychology is there for normal folks that they don't get it and they don't want to get it. This turns people to fuck off. Now that I've prefaced, I will start explaining in granular detail. Brian, are you with me? Maybe not.
I mean, I'm with you in terms, I'm listening to your assessment of them, yeah.
I mean, are you with me as far as let's break this thing down here?
Well, let me just say, this was one of the most this is the matches I've ever seen. We make fun of Owens and Zayn for always wanting to do their indie stuff. This was like the Ulysses of fucking...
This was Owens and Zayn if they were 15 years younger and either one of them had a good physique.
I'd be amazed. I mean, it would be amazing if these guys weren't really badly banged up after this, because they did a lot of highly physical stuff that could have been the finish, and then they kept going. This was like this was like an event with one match, except there were other matches, because they did everything you could ever possibly do in this match.
Yes. Every you pretty much seen it. This was
forever, over and over. It just went on and on. How long was it?
It was, hold on, I've got the notes here. I don't know how many pages. There's the screwdrivers. Wait a minute. Oh, hold on. It's 30 minutes bell to bell, plus the entrances, and then they meandered around a little bit. So let's... First of all, they said it was Osprey's first cage match. He's been wrestling 15 years or whatever the fuck. He's never had a cage match. He never worked for anybody that could afford a cage before. I said again, I assessed everybody. I said, did you think my assessment of Osprey was fair, halfway legitimate?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think he's the very best, the most spectacular in the world, but I think in terms of fitting into a system beyond just do what you like, your assessment was very fair.
Okay, well, they started out, and you could almost say, well, for the first 2 minutes, they're trying to, I guess, slow this thing down and pace themselves. I said they look like they're pacing themselves for a long match, which, again, for a cage match, co-main event, should be. But people have seen 11 matches in 4.5 hours so far. But then, boom, suddenly they started opening up, and Osprey, by 5 minutes in, is bleeding like a stuck hog. And I wrote, why did they let the girls do it first? If you're going to have a cage match with this big grudge between one of your top young heels and your top baby face, and they're going to be bleeding and they're going to be doing all this stuff 2 matches before you have girls bleeding, no selling pile drivers and rolling around in broken glass. So the Osprey and Kyle, they worked hard. Their shit looks good when they do their things, but in between the chops or the stunts or anything that's a big bump or makes noise, the crowd was nodding, or just, I don't know if they were nodding or just sitting there staring at it, but everything had been done. And I think I wrote, even I would have liked this a lot better 2 hours ago, because they were at least somewhat athletic and nobody had jumped the shark yet. And then Kyle took one of the turnbuckle pads off, but Osprey dropped him face first on it and then boomeranged him into the cage. And boy, that was nice. And then the camera was off Kyle forever while he got his color, which I understand now that they're so shell-shocked by what they've done with Moxley, where he just cuts himself in front of God and everybody. But there's people that have completed a gallbladder operation in less time than they keep the fucking camera off these guys. But then they go back and forth with the big moves, and in between, everybody will lay immobile. And then they exchanged kicks to the head deal where they grabbed the guy, Brian, by the back of the head and bend him over, and then rapid fire and very lightly kick at the area of the guy's head and say that they're kicking him in the head. What do they call that besides fake?
Punt? Soccer kick?
No. It's some Japanese guy.
Oh.
Did it. I assume maybe he did it better. That's why people have stolen it.
Baragon?
But it's
Mothra?
It's ridiculous. They're not only are they not kicking with any force, and they're doing it quick like that to the guy's forehead while he's bending over, not registering the kicks. And if somebody had me by one hand in my hair and had me bent over at the waist and was kicking me in the head, the first thing I'd think of to do, maybe try to block that fucking leg. Or maybe just sit down and get away from it completely. But they're just leaning there, and they're not. Kyle whiffed him, missed completely. And then Osprey hit him with a forearm that actually looked good. That was one for the night. Looked like it was knocked his dick stiff. But then they do the big moves where they're so athletic, and they do simple shit where it looks so phony. And then here comes Mark Davis out with a duffel bag, not his ass, not his voluminous, bulbous ass, but a separate bag of duffel. And he pulls bolt cutters out of it, and he cuts the lock and gets in the cage in front of multiple referees. And this is what I was talking about earlier. This is what would have killed a town. Yes, you've always seen a heel somehow get in a cage or come through the floor of the thing or slam the door behind him and lock it so that the referees can't get in or whatever, and do an angle at the end of a match where it's quick and it's chaos and people are trying to stop it. But they're saying, oh, it's no disqualification. So it's because it's a cage match, so we can't do anything. That is what people would have said bullshit. The Heat would have, if the referees are standing there watching a guy cut the lock off the cage, get in the cage, start helping another guy. If the referees are not trying to do anything about it, then that means that they, by proxy, they approve of it. And by proxy, that means that the promotion approves of it. And that's what would have caused people that wanted to see their fucking hero win. And as we've covered many times on this program, many of them were willing to get in the ring and help. They're sitting at just the average ticket buying fan. If they watched that, they would say, well, fuck this promotion. My guy is never going to get a fucking break. I'm not coming anymore. It would have killed a fucking town. You just can't do that. He gets in the ring, slides a chair in, he didn't get in the ring then. He slid the chair in and handed in the duffel bag, and then Osprey slammed the door on his head. So he's down at the side. More on him in a minute. Then Osprey gets out of the duffel bag a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire and hits Kyle in the stomach and in the back, and then starts raking it across his face. Okay. You've got a baseball bat, much less wrapped in barbed wire, in a fucking fight with a guy. How is he going to come back from you just hit him twice? And why are you raking his face? Just hit him in the head. You've won right there. No problem. But no, Fletcher begs off and Osprey milks it. And Kyle puts his old armband on. They're the logo of their old tag team, the undisputed king of the eras of the generation. I don't know what the fuck they were. The empirical data. Kyle puts his old armband on, but Will gives him the finger and swings the bat, and Kyle hits Will in the balls, and Will drops the bat, and they go another 11 minutes. I don't want to spoil anything, but babyface had the fucking heel that's fucked him around down, bleeding, and had a barbed wire wrapped baseball bat in his hands, and it took him another 11 minutes to beat this motherfucker. What a goddamn feckless pussy they have drawn the picture to make this guy out to be. So Kyle then took the armband off, wiped his blood all over it, and stuck it in Osprey's mouth. And then he picked the bat up and swung it and missed, and Osprey hit the fucking elbow and another big move and covered him. And that's where Mark Davis came in the ring and made the save. And Davis, by the way, now is bleeding too. So why did they fucking let the girls do that horse shit? The torture porn segment of the program. So now all these stupid fuckers are all bleeding. They've all had possession of a baseball bat. None of them can win the fucking fight. And then what happened to the baseball bat after that, Brian? Do you remember seeing what happened to the baseball bat?
I believe the referees took it in the back and checked it for cork.
I think, maybe you might be right, because I don't see any other notes of use of the baseball. So they just decided to start having a fight without the bat now that they've had the bat.
The bat was just a conduit to get the barbed wire in the ring. You're focusing too much on the bat. The bat was almost like a barbed wire holder to bring the barbed wire. The bat
was the MacGuffin.
That's right.
So Davis made the save and got the sleeper on Osprey and then just dropped him. And both heels, Davis and Kyle, went to double team Osprey, but he came out of it and whacked Davis with the chair and then kicked him out of the cage and closed the door. But they'd cut the lock off, so I guess now we're on the honor system. And then Osprey hit a Cody cutter on Kyle off the side of the cage and got a 2 count. And we continue. And Osprey wraps barbed wire around his own arm. And for all you Southern boys out there who have had extensive experience with barbed wire, stringing barbed wire, trying to climb over barbed wire, imagine what a stupid son of a bitch you'd have to be to wrap it around your own arm and hit somebody with it. But he did.
If only he had that bat.
See, that would have solved everything. He wraps the barbed wire around his own arm and he chases Kyle to the top of the cage, and they get set down on the top of the cage, but Kyle has pulled out a screwdriver, a bright fluorescent colored screwdriver, and Kyle stabs Osprey in the head with the screwdriver. And then he gets down and he stabs him in the head with the screwdriver twice more. And then he gives him a brain buster. And then he gives him a brain buster on a steel chair. Cover. 2 count. What the Then Kyle gets back in the duffel bag, which now resembled like a magician's fucking thing where he's pulling a fucking goddamn battleship out of a hat. And he dumps out 10,000 thumbtacks in the ring. More fake kicks to the head in the manner and style in which I described earlier. And he whiffed those too. And then Osprey rolled up and gave Kyle a Styles Clash into the thumbtacks. Face and chest first. Cover. 2 count. Then they climb to the top. And by the way, I'm going through this a lot fucking faster than it happened because it may sound exciting to you, but in between this ridiculous, childish fucking sideshow geek nonsense that they were perpetrating was a lot of fucking dead time. Then they climbed back to the top of the cage and fought over the screwdriver. And Will stabbed Kyle in the head. And then, if you told a top babyface in any company in the history of wrestling, we're going to have you hit this guy with a baseball bat a couple times, hit him with a chair a couple times, stab him in the head with a screwdriver, after having been fighting him for over 20 minutes, and then he's going to take over on you. They would have thought, what the fuck are you, you son of a bitch? You would have been. So then they were up there and they both carefully and in slow motion assisted each other gingerly to stand on top of the cage so that both of them could carefully at the same time on the count of 3 backflip off of it into a Spanish fly. And neither one's Spanish, and they didn't fly either. They hit the ground. But there was no cover on that. And who gives that move to who, the Spanish fly? The Osprey was giving this to Kyle, wasn't he?
Yeah, but okay, he took it worse.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just fucks up both guys, but, you know, theoretically, the one that was intended to. But there was no cover because Kyle just got up on his knees and screamed in a high-pitched squeal that sounded much like a police body cam video of a domestic disturbance, said, "I fucking hate you, you son of a bitch." And so Osprey hit him with that elbow that he couldn't get out of the way of because he was too busy screaming that he hated him. But then he didn't cover him after he hit him with his elbow finish. Then he grabbed him and hooked him up and gave him the dreaded tiger driver into the thumbtacks. And then he covered him 1, 2, 3. 30 fucking minutes. And again, the top baby face got a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire, hit the guy multiple times. It took him only 11 more minutes to beat the fucking guy. I think maybe I'm scared of Kyle at this point. He's the most indestructible man in the world.
It's like Jason
This
Voorhees.
he just keeps on coming. But it was worse to me than the girls' match, because the girls' match was, I mean, it exposed wrestling as phony, and it was in horrible taste, and sponsors don't want to be involved in this shit, and it drives off all but these, goofy internet mark fans. But I'm more offended at these guys as a professional, because they could do so much better with any restraint and any control and any guidance and anybody to sit them down and say, I don't give a fuck how fur you can jump. You don't know what the fuck you're doing when it comes to putting a goddamn show or a match together. And I am the booker, and I will tell you to do this, that, and the other thing. And you fill it in with color and the goddamn manner in which I like, and we'll all get along fine. Instead, they got a guy that's out there going, oh gosh, you guys jump so far. Do anything you want to do. So I'm offended as a professional. If I were a painter, not talking fences and houses, I'm talking art, and somebody just took a green paint enema and shit a landscape and tried to sell it to somebody, I would be offended because I was a painter, an artist. It's my line of work. If I were a singer and somebody recorded a cat being disemboweled and released it as a single and tried to sell it to people, I'd be offended. And if I were a carpenter and you were a lady, then I'd be offended if you built a house with no doors and windows in it and tried to sell it to somebody. It's just an affront to the profession that is not anything remotely based on what these fucking dipshits are doing. And it makes it look phony, and it makes it look stupid, and it makes it look low rent, and it makes the people in it look like complete goofs. And it doesn't say a lot for the people sitting there watching this shit. So I'm offended as a professional. Are you offended as a talented amateur?
I wouldn't say I'm offended. The only thing I really had a problem where I wouldn't even say offended, but I just hate it, and especially the way it was used here, the screwdriver. It was a throwback to all the other times they use it. But you see him stab the guy in the head with it. Why isn't he dead? Why isn't he impaled? Anything. I hate the screwdriver stuff. I knew this wasn't going to be a classic match. I knew this wasn't going to build. I knew this was going to just be balls to the wall. Let's do everything we can. Main event be damned. Let's do every single thing we can. Well,
the main event had already been damned.
But they did everything here. I enjoyed it. Because again, I kind of knew it was exactly what I expected it to be. Not that I expected all the spots, but this kind of match is what I expected. It's what I expect out of these two.
But you don't have to. You shouldn't. You don't have to.
I don't disagree
better
with
than
you.
That. They have.
I don't know
about Osprey's potential for learning him anything different at this point, but Kyle is young and he could be reformed. And you could see him in the WWE program climbing the ladder and being one of the best athletes and hopefully finding a personality.
So who's there in AEW that's going to sit him down and talk to him and tell him stuff he doesn't want to hear? It's not going to be
nobody.
Don Callis. Who's it going to be?
Nobody apparently, because they've all either, the ones that know have drunk the Kool-Aid and are hanging on to suckle at the teat of the billionaire boy child. And the ones that don't know any better just do the same shit that they always do with the same people they always do it with. And if you always do what you always did, then you always get what you always got.
Hey, here's a question for you, and we'll get the answer probably by the end of the week. All kidding aside, actually, serious question. What do you think Dave Meltzer is going to give this match? How many stars over 5 will this get?
You have to get an extra quarter star per stabbing, don't you?
So how many that'd be
like 7.
All right. I'm going to say
this
this is going to be between 6 and 7 stars. I think that's what he'll give it. Or it
This
could be
is
the
the
first
kind of-
8-star match. Who knows?
This is the kind of thing that he loves because the young kids that he aspires to be one day when he's even older than he is now, and he's older than me, they love it. So he loves it because he has to love it because they have to love him. And love is somehow involved. And just, if not love, then definitely somebody's jacking off.
Well, I told you earlier, a lot of AEW fans love this pay-per-view event, although it seemed like the love ended at this point, even though there was more of the pay-per-view to go. Based on what I've seen, the feedback from the people who really enjoy AEW, the love fest ended with Osprey versus Fletcher.
Yes, because then they had the two segments of the night that got the most derision coming up immediately afterwards, one right after the other. And I felt bad for the first one, for part of it, because what have we been saying about production meetings? Apparently they didn't have one for this show, or at least they went ahead and improvised this next segment. Tony Schiavone was at ringside at the railing with our friend Ash Avildsen, who's been on this program and was more eloquent, to say the least, here. Maybe it's because Tony's a rotten interviewer. But this was one of the most awkward things I've ever seen, and I don't know why of some of it. Because they're promoting Queen of the Ring. They had a bunch of their talent at the premiere in Los Angeles. I'm sure Tony flew them all to LA. Should have flown some to Louisville. We had more fun. But they're promoting the movie Queen of the Ring in theaters near you, folks, starring Jim Cornette and others. And so obviously this wasn't like a goddamn, oh, hey, look, we didn't know they were here. Let's just grab this interview, and it fell apart. They had to kind of know. They had to tell Tony, you're going to go over, you're going to interview Ash Avildsen and Kelly Berglund and Damaris Lewis. Give these people some names. Tony was at ringside. There's the three of them standing there, Ash and the two young ladies. And Tony says, we're here with Ash Avildsen, the director of Queen of the Ring. And the girls kind of, light up since they're on camera also. And Tony looks over at them and says, oh, hey, girls, nice to see you here. And turned back to Ash like they were marks from the front row. He didn't know who they were, or they were not supposed to be in this. He didn't know their names. So then he goes to Ash, and Ash is trying to plug the movie, but clearly he wanted the girls to be able to say something. And it looked like he may be trying to save that. Maybe did Tony forget their names? He just blanked, so he didn't introduce them. So Ash introduces them. He knows their names, but he fumbles the pitch on asking them a question. And he's, oh, just take it, girls. And then, oh my God, the first thing, the young lady, God, and then these are actresses now.
Take it, girls. And then she says the worst thing you can say.
Take it, girls. Oh, she took it all right. She took it. Damaris Lewis, who plays Babs Wingo, is one of the three sisters, Babs Wingo, Ethel Johnson, and Marva Scott. I met, oh my gosh, they were three sisters.
Oh, yeah.
They were the pioneer African-American lady wrestlers.
I just saw the video with Cosper.
Yes, and I forget which one. One of their daughters was there. I forget
It was
which
Marva.
one of the sisters.
I think it was Marva.
Marva's daughter.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Damaris Lewis plays Babs Wingo, but she says, one thing I've learned about pro wrestlers, y'all know you're going to win before anybody else does. So thanks for teaching me that. And Tony Schiavone was just frozen. Also, when Ash said, take it, girls, she had grabbed the microphone. Tony hadn't let go of it, but she grabbed it and pulled it in so she could go first. And you just know that she had rehearsed that and had thought this is such a profound thing to say. Because in her head, she's thinking, y'all are the first ones. You know you're going to win before anybody else does. And you go out and you prove it to them. She's trying to be inspirational, right? You're the first ones to know you're going to win. But what she does is just take a goddamn diuretic shit all over kayfabe on a wrestling program. And the fans on Twitter and everybody else, what? And she was proud of that. She didn't have any idea what she had done. And then
before the main event, right before the main event, you get on the
right before the main event, which, hey, if she hadn't exposed the business then, the main event would have.
The first thing I learned from the wrestlers is that it's fake. Thank you.
You know, that's one of the first inside insults I learned when I got into business. It was from the boys in the Tennessee territory. You would go up to a fucking guy and you'd say, I learned to work by watching you wrestle. And that was a profound fucking insult. Your shit was so see-through, right? You had to be there. But anyway, then young Nell Stewart spoke. And then when she finished, and she was a bit more pleasant and controversial. And then Tony was ignoring them pretty much as they were talking, and then turned to pitch out. And you could see Ash hold his hand up and he said one more thing I want to say. And Tony completely pitched out, like, get the fuck out of this. And cut out. It was the most awkward thing on everybody's part. Ash talked for an hour and a half on this program and didn't fumble anything. He couldn't make it 20 seconds on this show. These girls looked like they were interlopers on a live interview that just wandered out of the crowd from the way the announcer treated them. One of them, when they did get to speak, exposed the business on a fucking wrestling program. And then the announcer cut the poor fucking director of the goddamn movie they're plugging off and just said, fuck it, we're out of here. And that's the last you saw of any of them. God damn it.
That was an all-timer of a segment right there. Nothing went right. It should have been a layup. Hey, we got a few actresses and the director at ringside. Let's do something nice to promote this movie. They've all of a sudden been all over the movie, and then they go out there and the girl exposes.
If you'd like to see something similar done with absolutely no conversation or pre-planning ahead of time or a production meeting, go to official Jim Cornette on YouTube, and I'll be with some of the same people going for several minutes without anybody embarrassing themselves.
You have anything you want to say? Yeah, the first thing I learned is they know who's going to win. What the fuck? What the fuck? Oh, what was Ash? We need to get Ash back on the show now.
Yeah. Ash, what was that other thing you wanted to say?
Yeah, what was it, Ash? What were you going to tell Shivani? Were you going to say you're an idiot? What were you going to say?
It's going to be the biggest cliffhanger since Baby Doll's envelope on Dusty. Is what did Ash Avildsen want to finally figure out to say when you cut him off?
Babs Wingo says wrestling is fake.
And if you can't trust Babs Wingo to be on the level, who can you trust?
Oh, what a segment. Oh, God.
All righty then. Should we go there?
Well, unfortunately, I think I know where you mean, because there's only one place left to go. So let's go there. The main event, the world champion, Jon Moxley. We take his word for it. We haven't seen this belt in a long time. Versus Adam the Cope, or Adam just Cope, Copeland.
Adam the Cope Edgeland.
He's a
Adam
legend.
Cope.
The legend with the EDGE in it.
The illegible legend. Now, right there. That's got to be a nickname, the illegible legend. And that could be for one of these guys who just scribbles their autograph at FanFest.
You know, I'll let you do the review, obviously, but this match was horrible. And I really started to enjoy it. When I told you I enjoyed things for the wrong reasons, by the end of this match, I was enjoying it for every reason that was wrong, because it was so bad. And every movement Moxley makes around the ring is ridiculous. Every movement, he like sticks his shoulders back and his chest up, but like he goes nowhere. And then he turns around and walks back to where he came from. So
yes, he turns, and it's like one of those goddamn things that when it bumps into something, it changes direction. But
my question was going to be, this match was awful, and the fans didn't like it, and AEW's fans didn't like it, and AEW's fans are sick of Moxley and the Death Rider stuff. But how much of it was that, and how much of it is nothing should have followed that cage match, let alone the Tony Storm match. How could you follow that cage match?
Well, it's a combination of everything, because if you look at it in fairness to these individuals, let's look at it from their side before we switch over to the right side. One guy's 40 years old and facially looks 60, even though he's gotten in better shape physically. I guess being stretched by all those Home Depot clerks, got him in shape. But one guy's 40 and one guy's in his early 50s, and they're going on the 13th match after, let's see, the bell rang at 3.5 hours into the pay-per-view. So 5 hours into the overall presentation here in this arena. And they've seen 12 matches, and everything in the world has been done. So even the best talent under the best of circumstances would have had trouble having these people on the edge of their seats unless they were about to fall off because they had gone to sleep and their legs had gone numb. But having said that, on the other side of things, the combined age in this main event is fucking 90-something. And while Edge has been a top-level talent, he's in his early 50s and seen his better days. Dick the Boozer, his work, as we've many times mentioned, is fucking rotten. And his matches are never any good because he has this personality in mind that he just doesn't look like, and it's just goofy. And then the entire issue has been garbage because the Death Riders thing has been the Boar Horseman. It's bored everybody. Nobody cares. It's tanked the ratings. Nobody understands it. He's a raving idiot. Pac pops in every now and then. Claudio just does what he's told like a lurch. And there's old Wheeler popping up looking like a goddamn store clerk every now and then to get his ass kicked. It's just nobody cared. I don't think they would have cared if it's the first thing they'd seen, because did I mention Moxley's matches are garbage? And then they ring the bell. And as the fans are sitting there and staring at them, they traded forearms. You know how many forearms they traded, Brian?
No.
Do you know how many forearms they traded?
I don't know, no.
70 forearms. And sometimes they were the quick ones, and sometimes they were the drawback and throw ones, and sometimes they sold them, and sometimes they didn't, and sometimes they looked stiff, and sometimes they were phony as a football bat. But there were 70 of them, and then one bump. And I mean, like you said, I zoned out because this Moxley is spastic. But the things he does, most of them don't look good. And the ones that might look good don't make any sense. And his psychology, if you can even apply that word, doesn't count. And poor Edge is trying to do these modern type of matches that the indie crowd likes. And they did about 20 minutes of that. And then finally, well, not finally, but to start telling you how this weirdness unfolded, Moxley brings in a chair and the referee takes it away. And Edge rolls Moxley up, but Moxley kicks him off and Edge nails the referee, and the referee takes a nice bump to the floor. Now, of course, haven't we just seen that goddamn spot? The kick, they kicked over, the pancaked Nana in the corner 3 matches ago, right? Same roll up, kick out, roll up, kick out, ref gone. Okay.
What did you think about how physical and verbal Bryce Remsburg all of a sudden was?
Well, they probably told him to be that way. And that's why he decided to take the opportunity to actually stand up and look like an official. But again, in this company, you can't be a referee and have any integrity whatsoever because they're going to bury you deeper than Long John Silver's pirate treasure every match. It's unavoidable. But anyway, the referee's down. He's going to be down for about 3 minutes from being hit from behind and falling through the ropes. So at that time, both Edge and Dick the Boozer are selling. Moxley crawls over to Edge next to him, covers his mouth and talks to him for a second, and then gets up and rolls out and gets a couple of chairs.
Yeah, what was that?
I swear to God that happened.
Yeah.
He crawled over next to him and put his hand up over his mouth like a stage whisper, like.
He didn't even try to hide it. It was right in front of the camera.
No, he didn't try to hide it by trying to hide it. He obviously was trying to hide it. That's how it wasn't hidden. It's like he needed Harley Cameron and her ventriloquism or her cunning linguism or whatever it may be. So then he goes out and gets the 2 chairs and goes to set up a concerto on Edge, but Edge kicks the chair in Moxley's face and they do a double clothesline. Both of them are down. The crowd is sitting in enraptured silence. And here comes Wheeler out to a small smattering of groan type boos, like ah. And he gets in the ring, and as they're both standing up, he's milking which one he's going to hit. And they're obviously standing up next to each other without trying to make any offensive move toward each other so that they can be part of this decision that we are expected to believe that Wheeler is anguishingly making. And then he gives Edge the knee. And he goes against the briefcase and gives it to Moxley. But here comes Light Switch Jay White. And he gets on Wheeler and grabs the case and swings at Moxley. But Moxley moves out of the way and White bashes Edge over the head with the briefcase. And then Wheeler and Jay White fight off. So that, yes, every great once in a while I can think of a triple threat with Undertaker as the referee with Shawn and Brett one time. You do the deal where the babyface looks like an imbecile and hits his own person he's trying to help when the heel ducks, but normally that's a spot that goes the other way around. The babyface ducks out of the way of the heel. But since White looks like a goddamn blithering idiot most of the time anyway, who gives a shit? So they're gone, and Moxley covers Edge, and the referee rolls in. 2 count. God. Now Mox is trying to push the referee around, but Edge hits Moxley with a spear. 2 count. And he hits him with 2 more spears. 1, 2. Whoosh. The referee is pulled out of the ring by a guy in a hoodie who is revealed to be Brian, you did it again, kid. Christian Cage. Christian Cage is now at ringside, and he hit Edge over the head with the metal thing holding the contract and then signed the contract and made it a triple threat match, which now the announcers are saying, well, that means it's no DQ now. What the fuck? And then Christian spears Edge. 2 count. And then Christian gives the unprettier, it used to be, what is it now? The kill switch to Edge. But as he does that, Moxley jumps back in and grabs the choke on Cage and holds on. And while Edge is laying there unconscious from the Zabada that Christian hit him with, Moxley chokes Cage and the referee calls for the bell.
Well, there was the one spot, though, where Moxley had him in the choke and Christian put his hand over Edge. Oh, I forgot, Cage.
Yes. Yeah. That was...
that was a good spot.
Yeah. Well, it was a good spot, except when you think about it, he's got this fucking supposed goddamn brutal choke on his guy. He calmly puts his hand on him. 1, 2, no. But it was cute. But nevertheless, he chokes out a guy that wasn't even in the match until 30 seconds ago while Edge is laying there unconscious, and then grabs the briefcase and leaves. And the fans are booing. And again, it's not like did it come off to you like the heel is one booing, or
No.
we didn't like this bullshit at all booing?
This was a bullshit booing, and the place came alive when Christian showed up. Because it was something.
It was something after over 20 fucking minutes of this, after all the other shit they'd seen. At least Christian is there. Okay, is there going to be a title change? I think that's what they were thinking.
I think they also wanted the Moxley stuff to end, and the idea is if he loses the title, it's over. This is the first time we've seen Christian without any backup. I'm pretty sure Mama Wayne could take Moxley. They weren't out there to help him for the first time anything he's done in a long time. Also, why cash in there when you can wait like 5 minutes for them to kick the shit out of each other more and one of them to win?
And cash in on one guy.
And cash in on one guy, yeah.
Well, I'm not saying this made any sense. I was just reporting how it happened, officer. I'm doing the official arrest report on this thing, not trying to fucking litigate it in court. None of it made any sense, but it also pissed the people off. Because what the fuck? And you're right. They were up for that last 45 seconds because they thought something's going to happen. Well, they didn't realize something did happen, but that wasn't what they wanted to happen. And 26 minutes of boredom with a fuck at the end. And not even a heel fuck on the baby face, but a heel fuck on the other heel. And also Christian cashes in after all this time and makes it 30 seconds and gets choked out. I mean, find me something good about this for anybody.
And now I guess we're going to get more Edge versus Christian, which I don't know if anyone else wanted that right now. Has Edge put over anyone? Like, I saw this brought up the other day. Since he returned to wrestling, is there a younger wrestler that he has actually put over?
I mean, he's let Danny Garcia and the likes beat on him for 20 minutes before he beats them. But in all honesty, you can say that two ways. Edge has not put over any younger wrestler, and Edge hasn't been in the ring yet with anybody that he should have put over.
Maybe.
Think about it.
Maybe. But now if
another case of there you are.
Well, there we are. We'll get him against Christian again.
And that's the thing. That's the way they're going, because Edge was flat of his back, didn't know what the fuck was going on, but he'll find out later that Christian cost him his chance at the title. He had Moxley covered. So Christian and Edge have heat with each other again. Yeah. Cage has lost his chance at the title as long as Moxley holds it. And as Moxley was leaving, they were careful to keep the camera on him as he went through the crowd and back into one of the breezeways long enough that you knew that there's more shit going to go on. And then up walks Prince Nana to confront Moxley in a breezeway, and suddenly a dozen security guards appear. Now, bear in mind, there were all kinds of goddamn people getting in fights that weren't involved in this match a minute ago. There wasn't a security guy to be seen, but now that two guys are staring at each other in a mean fashion, there's a dozen of them there. And right at that point, the camera backs up and you see Swerve in the balcony, and he jumps off the balcony with a double stomp on Moxley, with the 12 security guards as spotters.
Yeah.
And that's when we went off the air.
So that's what I guess we have to look forward to now. Moxley versus Swerve. Oh, boy.
Which one will drink the blood and which one will eat the bones?
And then we got Christian versus Edge, the Ontario Sammy versus Kevin.
That will be a combined age of 106 in the new youthful promotion.
You know, like I said before, AEW hardcore fans loved this pay-per-view event, and even they got to the point where they were fed up with this main event and the finish. It's two different things. They didn't like the match, and then the finish pissed them off. It's almost like a slap in the face. Some people think Tony's just waiting for Darby to come back. Some people think it'll be something else.
Is he really going to climb that fucking mountain? Because I don't know. I might be taking an office pool on whether Darby comes back or not if he's going to climb that stupid fucking mountain. And here's another goddamn thing. With business the way it is right now, why don't Tony Khan put his big boy pants on, tell Darby, the world adventurer, hey, I got a contract on you and I'm paying you money. Get off the fucking mountain and come back here and fucking help me draw some. The fuck? Oh, sure, you could have 6 months off with pay to go climb Mount fucking Everest. Good God.
We will see what happens. That was AEW Revolution.